Welcome, everyone. This is Michael Gibbs. How are we all today? For those of you that are on Zoom. For those of you that are on YouTube, we're super excited to work with you as well. How are we all today? Good afternoon to you, to everyone that is on Zoom. For the folks that are on Zoom and the folks that are on YouTube, we're going to wait about 2 minutes or so, give everybody else a chance to join. It's our experience, because we run these very frequently, that people typically join. And then within a few minutes, everybody else gets notified and they join. Especially since we simulcast these from YouTube, LinkedIn, I actually believe Facebook right now. And of course, for the people that are on Zoom, we're thrilled to have you on Zoom. For those of you who don't know me, I'll tell you a little bit about me while we're waiting for everyone to get here. My name is Michael Gibbs, and I am the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects. I'm going to tell you this. I have been in tech now for as long as I can remember. In fact, I got to say this. I've actually been in tech since before the year 2000. The first tech things I actually did were in 1993, but that I don't even want to talk about that because it reminds me why I have gray hair. But I've loved every last minute about tech, so it's been a really wonderful experience. So we're going to wait about 2 or 3 minutes to have some people truly join us for this call. We're super grateful to have you all here. It looks like Tyrone, I think you're coming from South Africa. Michael Abraham, so good to see you here. Arif, so great to see you here. Sojan, I am thrilled to have you all here. So we'll begin in about a minute or so, but how is everybody today? Somebody let me know. Yes, I remember speaking on LinkedIn absolutely yesterday. I remember very completely. I'm reigning in the UK. Well, I live in near Palm Beach, Florida. So for me, this time of year, it's either 95 degrees or rain, and rain some more. So, when we're in these kind of things, I got it. Arif, I am so happy to see you back when we were away. Abdul on YouTube, welcome. We're super excited to have you here. Give us about, 2 minutes. Everybody will be notified. We're going to start to get a quorum, enough people. We want to begin. I don't like to start until we have enough people here for the following reasons. If people miss the intro, it makes it a little more challenging for people to get to their goals. So for those reasons, I'm going to give it a minute or two. So Laman, welcome. Carl, welcome. So happy to have you all here. Okay, so I see some folks are on YouTube. You're doing great. Okay, this is fantastic. Maybe it's time for us to get started. So I absolutely love these kind of things. So we're so happy to have you here today. The purpose of today's discussion is as follows. How do you get your first cloud architect job? Now, whenever you hear a presentation, you really got to look at who is the source. Whenever you purchase training, look at who is the source. Whenever you watch the news, look at who is the source. What is their experience level? So I'm going to tell you mine so you know where I'm coming from. I say I've been in tech for 25 years, but truth be told, it's longer than that. But I only say 25 years because I don't want to feel old. I have had really lucky. I have had a chance to be a lead architect at Cisco. I had a chance to be a lead architect at a company called Riverstone Networks. It was a great tech company. It used to be the old Cabletron. I've had the opportunity to be a Principal 2 architect when I worked at Comcast, and I was responsible for the design of their backbone. And I had the chance to be a lead architect at MCI WorldCom, which at the time was the world's largest internet service provider. So I've been in this world for a little while. Over the 25 years or so, I've been considered to be a subject matter expert, predominantly on global network design, but also security and cloud computing. And I've traveled hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousand miles per year, every year, to either train people or consult people on this matter. And probably the part of my career that I'm most proud of is not the billion-dollar systems I've designed. It's not consulting to everyone. It's the teaching, coaching, and mentoring. I have spent more than 2 decades, I'm not joking, more than 2 decades, teaching people how to get their first tech job or get promoted in tech. And it's one of the best experiences of my life. I love it so much that in my retirement, I created this program to generate and create the new generation of technology leaders. I had my fun. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I had the best tech career I can possibly even describe, was able to retire at 34 years old. It was wonderful, but it's now my time. And of course, I got so bored, I did all kinds of crazy tech things because, that's what happens. But it's now my time to help all of you build great careers. So that's why we're doing these things today. So let's talk a little bit about, the agenda for today. First, we're going to talk about how we created the Get Your First Tech Job method and why it works. Then we're going to talk about how you can take your current skills and apply it to a cloud architect job. This is essential for your career. Then we're going to talk about what the hiring manager wants, so you can become exactly what the hiring manager wants, so you can get hired, but also paid more. Then we're going to talk about tuning your resume so it sells you, so you can get hired. Then we'll talk about how to skip this HR bottleneck so no one cares about your experience, so we can get you in front of the hiring manager so you can prove that you're competent. After this, we'll do 1 hour at least of group coaching, where any of you can ask me any questions you want about building your career. You can pop off of Facebook or LinkedIn and pop into Zoom to ask a question if you want and be heard physically, or you can ask your questions in the chat box. My associate Chris is going to be aggregating your questions and feeding them to me after we do this presentation. So we will answer everyone's questions, I promise you. So now you know what we're going to be talking about today. Let's begin. How did we come up with this idea of a Get Your First Tech Job method? Because this is not things people normally do. Most architects and engineers don't think about how you get your first job. Well, I'm different. And my background is very different. So what happened is this. The things that I know really well are behavioral science, psychology, sociology, economics, and the practice of internal medicine, obviously tech, but that's neither here nor there. So I was practicing internal medicine. And, I was a nurse practitioner, had my own office, practiced internal medicine. It was a great job. Got paid well. There was no complaints. But I found that I just really loved tech. I mean, I loved it so much that my wife said, Mike, dear, you're spending $30,000 a year on tech. And this is back in 1999. She said, why do we need 4 servers in this room and 6 routers in this room? Why do we have wires and cabling running through our house? And I was like, I love playing with tech, dear. It's my hobby. And my wife, she's got 170 IQ. In fact, she's so smart, she learned Spanish in 2 weeks because her translators couldn't even understand her thoughts. So she says to me, she's like, dear, why don't you just make this career your career? Because she's like, you're spending $30,000. And in those days, it was like $50,000 or $60,000 just on Twice so I could play with tech. So I could deal with routing and switching and build networks. I loved it. So she said, build a career in tech. And I said, ding, ding, ding. My wife's right. I'm going to go work in tech. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get certified. I'm going to get hired, right? Everybody knows that's the path. Well, I took a 5-day, $5,000 MCSE boot camp. And that was in 1999. So it's like $15,000 in today's money. I locked myself in a room for 4 days and became a CCNA, Cisco Certified Network Associate. And I went and took a 10-day, $11,000 CCNP boot camp. I did those 4,000 pages of reading with them during that week, along with 16 hours a day of teaching. Passed all 4 CCNP exams back then, because that's what it was. Got home from this boot camp and said, oh, wow, it's only 2 more certifications to a Cisco Certified Design Professional, the architecture cert. So I got certified as a CCDA, Cisco Certified Design Associate, then straight to the Cisco Certified Design Professional. Now, look at me. I spent about 20 grand on training in those days, which is about $60,000 in today's world. I had a Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, a Pro Cert, a Cisco Certified Networking Professional, a Pro Cert, and a Cisco Certified Design Professional, Pro Cert. And I went and sent out a couple resumes as a test to see what would happen. Here's what happened. Rejected, 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 rejected. Now, my initial thought was, I have 3 professional certifications. Why aren't I getting hired? But of the 5 rejections I got, 2 of them actually spoke to me. 2 of them called me. I was so grateful. Because, in those days, you'd email your resume in or you'd fax in. But these 2 people that called me did something very special. They told me what was wrong. Like, Mike, look, I would love to hire you. They're like, I've never seen a resume that looks like this. But I don't know if you're a doctor or I don't know if you're a network engineer. I can't figure it out. It's like, all your degrees are in healthcare. All your licenses are in healthcare, except for these couple of high-level certifications, these professional certs. But, you have no experience. They said, how could I hire you? And I said, I understand. Good morning, Nelson. I get it. I'm like, wow, this is kind of like one of those positions. I'm like, I finally get it. Like, what could I possibly do? So I was a little confused. So that night, I went to the gym. I'm always in the gym. I did martial arts for about 30 years. I teach yoga. I was doing some Olympic weightlifting way back when and some powerlifting. So my gym is where I go to relax. At least I used to before I shattered my foot. So I was in the gym and I ran into a buddy of mine that was working in tech. And I asked my buddy, I said, what do you do? How do you get a tech job? And he's like, what do you mean, how do you get a tech job? There's 1,000,001 of them. So he said, I said, I'm applying to HR and I'm getting rejected. And they're like, Mike, he says, Mike, that's your huge mistake. Why on earth are you applying to HR? He said, you're never going to get hired that way. I said, what do you mean? How else do you apply for jobs? He said, Mike, you don't have any background. You don't have any experience. All you have is certs. HR is going to stop you. You got to go directly to the hiring manager. I'm like, how do I do that? I don't know any hiring managers. And he said, here's the name of a couple of recruiters. And he said, call a recruiter that gets paid $20,000 to $50,000 to find you a job will work hard to find you a job. I took his advice. Well, I did a couple things. So he did that. So I took his advice and I called a recruiter. Now, something interesting happened when I called the first recruiter. The recruiter spoke to me and gave me so much valid information. First recruiter I called was in California. I was living in Philadelphia. I had no desire to move to California. It was 3,000 miles away. I come from a big Greek family that needs us to translate. I couldn't move out there, so I called somebody in California first. And this really nice guy spent 45 minutes with me telling me exactly what I needed to do, exactly what the hiring managers wanted, literally about everything. I was so excited. I now had insight into the mind of the hiring manager. And I went, okay, this is really good. I sent a really nice gift to this recruiter. And then I said to myself, I said, look, I'm a scientist. If one person tells me something, who knows? If I hear it from a lot of people, it's probably true. I called 49 more recruiters, and 48 out of the 50 told me the same thing. They told me exactly what the hiring manager wanted. And I was like, wait a second. I now know what the hiring manager wants. So I did the following. I said, here's my capabilities now. Here's what the hiring manager wants. If this is my capabilities and this is what the hiring managers want, I have to get the skills to be what the hiring manager wanted. So I built a gap analysis and I filled in all the gaps that the recruiters told me the hiring managers wanted. I went on my first tech job and poof, I was hired. I didn't even make it through the interview. I was offered a job on the spot. And I wasn't just hired. I was hired as a senior engineer. I had applied for a network engineer position and I was a senior engineer position. And I'll tell you how and why that happened. I knew exactly what the customer wanted, meaning the hiring manager. I knew exactly their needs. I knew exactly the skills that were required. I knew exactly their pain points, and I knew how to solve the hiring manager's problem. Why did you do this? I asked 50 recruiters. Then, throughout my career, I have asked every hiring manager that I've ever interacted with in every continent. So, there's that. So, now you know about those two things. So, every continent. Then, I spoke to people. I've done 5,000 interviews of people. So, I know exactly what the hiring managers want, and I will share that information with you. Here's the secret. If you have the skills that the customer wants, and you have the best product, meaning you are what the hiring manager desires, you will get hired. And the more desirable you are to the hiring manager, the more you will get paid. So I need you all to understand that. So let's talk about leveraging your life experience. One of the most critical things that I would do, it did in my background, is I convinced the hiring manager that my past experience was 100% relevant for my future experience. There is no such thing as no experience. I have no idea why people assume there's no such thing as there's no experience. There's always experience. I don't care what your life, you have experiences that will make you relevant to being an architect. I'm going to walk through my life, and I'm going to give you two examples that are going to sound absolutely crazy related to architecture. I'm going to show you that these two things, my martial arts hobby and the practice of medicine, made me an architect. In fact, not only did it make me an architect, I went from zero background in tech to lead architect that I learned in this question and answer session. So, and they were all coming from the martial arts skills and the medicine skills. So let's talk about that before we get into the meat of this. I just want to show you how seemingly unrelated things are truly related. Because I don't ever want any of you to have no experience. You all have experience. It's valid experience. So let's use that experience to show the manager they need you. Here was the first major experience that I had that made me an architect. I was a martial artist. I've been involved in karate, Krav Maga, Kempo, Jiu-Jitsu, Sistema, all of it for the last 3-4 decades, like most of my life. So, this is what I know. Now, in martial arts, you're going to say martial arts, this is like war techniques and architecture. Same thing. Here's what I learned from martial arts. This is very applicable to your architecture career. In martial arts, I learned to be laser focused at all time. You're in martial arts, you're sparring with someone, you're moving around, things are good, you're coming up here, and you lose your focus, you think about your wife, poof, you get knocked out, and trust me, it doesn't feel good. Guess what? The second you lose your focus in an architecture, you will make mistakes like you can't even imagine. So, super, super, super critically important kind of thing. Learn to be focused at all times. What else did I learn from martial arts that made me a better cloud architect and network architect? Well, I learned to be calm at all times. Here's what you're thinking. Martial arts? Calm? Martial arts winners are calm. Martial arts losers are get angry. They're not calm. Big difference. Here's why. We're here, we're talking. Yeah, some part behavior scientist and neurobiologist as well from my practice of medicine. So I integrate this into everything we do. When we're here, we're calm, we're relaxed. We're using the prefrontal cortex as part of our brain. This is the thinking and the logical reasoning, the great stuff. All the magic happens here. When we get frustrated, or we get stressed, or we get angry, this nice thinking part of our brain just completely shuts down. Do you know what we have instead? The amygdala kicks in, and that's the nasty part. And if you've ever had a conversation with someone and said things you didn't regret in the heat of an argument, now you know the need of that nasty amygdala. Do this in a cloud architect role, you're either getting fired, you're burning relationships, and your career is over. So learn to be laser focused. And we're going to talk about that when it comes to learning the skills for your job. If you are not laser focused on the right skills, here's what's going to happen. No one will be able to hire you because they're going to have every skill other than the ones that are needed. And I see this every day. The last 1,000 people I interviewed for cloud architect jobs knew every skill other than architecture. Everything other than architecture. So we're going to talk about those skills too. Now, something else that I learned in martial arts. In martial arts, they made me read The Art of War. In my MBA program, they made me read The Art of War. In The Art of War, they say this, and please apply this to your career. Know yourself, know your enemy, and you will always be victorious. So, know yourself, your capabilities, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities for growth, your capabilities. Know your true weaknesses. Only then do you know how to do battle, because you can build a battle plan or a get hired plan based upon your strengths. And you can figure out a way to mitigate your weaknesses. Don't know your enemy, you're lost. So if you don't know what the hiring manager wants and you pitch them the wrong way, you're not getting hired. If you don't know what your competition knows when you're applying for jobs, how do you become better than the competition? People will say the competition's only with yourself. Nonsense. There's 5,000 applicants for a job. And when you're prepared, you get hired. So make sure you know yourself, know your competition, know what the hiring managers want, and we're going to talk about that in depth in a few minutes. What else did I learn from martial arts? Build a plan. I mean it. Build a plan. How do you go from point A to point B? I also learned to build a contingency plan. And I learned that if your primary plan and your backup plan fails, you got to be loose and flexible and adapt, improvise, and overcome. That's the secret. Adapt, improvise, and overcome. First, build yourself a plan to win. Then build yourself a plan of where things don't go your way. And then after that, learn how to be agile, learn how to go with the flow and go with the plan. In my life, here's what it was like. Mike, I need you to go to England in the morning. Give a speech. When you're done that, I need you to go fly to Dubai. Give a speech the next day. When you're done that, I need you to go to Melbourne, Australia. Give a speech. When you're done that, go fly to Hong Kong. Do you know how many times I'd be giving a speech and say, what's the speech on? And they're like, well, it could be voice, it could be video, it could be how to build a network for healthcare. And I'm like, would you like to tell me that? No, it's going to be one of these 3 things. And I basically built 3 stock prezos and I just did it. I'd show up on the time and I'd figure it out. That's the job. We got to be agile. Now, here's where I learned how to be an architect. Now, this is the place where people are going to think I'm nuts, but this is where I learned to be an architect. When I learned to practice medicine, I learned to be an architect. Practicing medicine, architect, like crazy. Well, no. This is why I was a lead architect within 6 months. Everybody else was struggling to move up into engineering roles. I maximized the engineering role in 3 months. Within 3 months, I was the lead engineer on the design team. Within 6 months, I was the lead architect on my team because of medicine. So, medicine taught me these 3 critical things for architecture. First thing it taught me was the need for real knowledge. I see people with 8x and 10x AWS certifications. And you know what that makes me think? This is a person that knows zero about anything. They know just enough to memorize or mug up some questions and answers, pass a test, and when you interview these people, they have no knowledge. And I learned this in medicine. Here's the process of medicine. And medical people are smart people, just like engineers and architects are. It takes 4 years undergraduate to teach someone the foundations of anatomy, physiology, communication skills. It then takes 4 years of medical school to teach them medicine in general. Then it takes a 1-year resident internship and a couple-year residency. Then, if you want to be a specialist, you do a fellowship for 3 to 5 years. So it could take someone 17 years to begin entry-level practice as a physician. Now, 17 years, do you think someone's 10x AWS certified in medicine, where they do the eyes, the ears, the brain, the back, the spine? No, we're not crazy. We have 10 kinds of cardiologists just for the heart. So the heart is the size of my fist. We've got 10 people that went to school for 17 years just to learn the heart and different inner workings of the heart just for medicine. That's what it takes to be good. That's what it takes to be great. And that's just entry-level practice. The physician is then going to spend the next 50 years mastering something. I've learned the need for fundamental knowledge in medicine. When I went into tech, here's what I did. I became a BGP expert. It was the most interesting thing that I knew. I knew it was the skill that everybody needed. So, here's the thing. I did what I came from medicine. Medicine said know a lot about a small area. I got to architecture, engineering. I became a BGP expert overnight. Thousands and thousands of pages. I had 15 routers I was sitting with BGP policies. I spent 10,000 hours on BGP, and then I became a BGP expert. So be great at something. 2, when I worked in medicine, this is how I learned how to be an architect. Apologies for all the landscapers. I live in Florida, and they cut grass all day long. I learned how to be an architect. That's the process in medicine. I'm going to tell you right now. Patient comes in, and they say they have a complaint. I ask some questions. I evaluate them. I make a diagnosis, and I give them a treatment plan. Ask questions, assess, diagnose, plan. What is the job of the architect? Ask the customer, the executives, what are your business goals? What are your challenges? What are your pain points? What are you trying to achieve? Assess the current systems. What do they have? Do they have what they need, or do they need something different? Make a diagnosis, just like medicine, and build a plan. You know what the plan is called in architecture? It's called an architecture. So medicine, interview a client. Architecture, interview a client. Medicine, ask some questions. Architecture, ask some questions. Medicine, evaluate the person. Architecture, evaluate the current systems. Medicine, make a diagnosis. Architecture, make a hypothesis. Medicine, give a prescription. Architecture, do an architecture document. Convince the customer they need it, present it back to the customer, and sell it to the customer. The same job. And I'm trying to impart on you is these architect jobs are so similar to so many other jobs. Show the manager that your past experience is relevant, and wow, look at what's going to happen for you. You will have an amazing, amazing, amazing career. So what else did I learn in medicine? Things that people don't think of as architect skills, but are absolutely critical skills. Communication skills. When you're asking a patient questions, and a lot of these questions are very private, they may not want to tell you. So you have to ask questions in a certain way, open-ended questions. You've got to have a lot of emotional intelligence and empathy to get the right information. Guess what? When you walk into a client and you look at systems that are ridiculous, how they got there, the ridiculous design, all the things that aren't working, you can't say, hey, Mr. CEO, what kind of idiots built your system? You got to be emotionally intelligent. You got to say, okay, I see what's going on. Yes, I could see how this was built given the information you had at the time. But, things have changed because of this reason. We need to do this, this, and this. We can help you. It was a great design, but we can scale it and modernize it. You can't call the previous people idiots, or you won't get the information you need. So I learned that. And those skills, how to basically design an architecture, how to ask the right questions, and how to be deep knowledgeable and not be a jack of all trades and a master of none that can't be hired. And if you do hire them, you hire them for very low pay. To be a specialist, specialists get paid more, specialists have more opportunities, specialists are where they want to be. So that's what I learned from medicine. So now you know what I learned from martial arts. Being calm, I learned how to be agile, I learned how to focus. And in medicine, I learned how to basically build an architecture, ask the right questions, and how to be deep knowledgeable. Now, I will do this for any one of you guys in the end. Any of you want me to tell you how your experience is relevant to being an architect? I will love to do it. So just let me know. So now, how did I do what I did to get my first job so you can learn? And then we'll talk about all the things that you need to do. First thing, from medicine, I learned to ask questions. I was like a spy. I did polite interrogations to 50 recruiters. I asked them all. I sent them all gifts when I was done. I elicited the right information so I could build a get hired plan for me. In the architecture world, I elicit the right information from the client so I can design the right architecture. Same skill. I called recruiters. Why did I use IT recruiters? Because they get paid to find people at jobs. So they know exactly what the hiring manager does. Why else do I hire recruiters? The following reasons. They skip HR. They bring you right to the hiring manager. We'll talk much more about that process soon. I looked at the skills that the recruiters and hiring manager types told me versus the ones that I had, did a gap analysis, and I fixed it. That is the way to do it. So now, if you really want to be hired, realistically speaking, you need to be what the hiring manager desires. Let's take all the cloud architecture, all these other careers out of it. When you want something, what do you buy? Ideally, what you want. My wife has 300 pairs of shoes. I don't understand it at all. I have 3. She's got 300 of them. I asked her, I said, why do you buy the shoes? And she says, I like them. They make me feel good. They look nice on my feet. I said, how do you determine which shoes you want? The ones that I like, the ones that are comfortable, the ones that make me happy. So guess what? What a hiring manager hire. Things they like, things that make them happy. What kind of a computer you buy if you have an unlimited budget? You buy the one you want. What kind of car do you buy if you have an unlimited budget? You buy the one you want. So be what the hiring manager wants and you'll get hired every time. So what do hiring managers want? This is the secret to getting hired. First and foremost, you must be technically competent. That means the ability to do the job. So there's something called experience, which is you've just been doing something a long period of time. And there's something called competency, which is the ability to do it. They're not the same. I've got a 25-year-old prodigy that's a student of mine. His name is Jesse. By the time he's 27, I will want him more than someone with 30 years of experience because he's a prodigy and he fights so hard and he studies so much. So that's what we want. We're hiring managers, someone that can do the job. So that's first. Now, what else do we hiring managers want? This is a critical one. This number 2 point is why 99% of all interviews fail. So I'm going to tell you. We want someone that can do the job, but more importantly, we want someone we can trust. So I've done 5,000 interviews in my career. I'm not joking, 5,000. 4,950 people plus have lied to me. So I want someone that can do the job and someone that I can trust. If I ask you how something works and you don't know and you bluff, which is a lie, interview's over. Done, right then and there. I can't hire someone I can't trust. So you know what's going to happen when I get someone that lies to me? I can't say I can't hire you because you stink. I can't say I can't hire you because I don't trust you. I can't say I can't hire you because I don't like you. What do we say? I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry, sir. You just don't have enough experience. Come back when you have. Now, if I brought you in for an interview, guess what? It's because I was willing to hire you. I don't have time to interview people as a hiring manager. I don't even have time to go to the bathroom as some hiring managers. I don't have time to eat some days. I certainly don't have the time to waste time to interview 5 people that I don't think I can hire. So when someone says you don't have any experience after they brought you in an interview, it's because they don't like you. And I'm not saying that's happening to any of you, but I'm saying that's what we hiring managers all use as an excuse to say, sorry, I can't hire you. It's better to say, that than say you don't know anything, or you're incapable, or you lied to me and I don't trust you. So first and foremost, we want someone that can do the job and someone we can trust. So do not lie on the interview. You know how I got hired on my first interview? I was sitting there with Devendra, the hiring manager. He asked me a behavioral question. I answered it. He loved it. He asked me a tech question. He answered. I loved it. He asked me a behavioral question. I answered. I loved it. He asked me a tech question. I answered it. He loved it. He asked me a tech question. I had no idea with this last tech question. He asked me this question, and I took a deep breath. And I said, Devendra, I want to be truly honest with you. And I made a joke. I said, it's Monday at 11:30. We're having this interview. And he says, yes. I said, last Friday at 6:30 p.m., I was actually doing rounds on my patient in the hospital. And he already starts to laugh. I said, look, I just haven't had the chance to learn this yet. I said, I'm highly motivated. I'm highly energetic. I'm highly enthusiastic. I love tech. And I said, my house has like 10 servers and they're in a bunch of routers and switches because it's all I do. It's my whole life. I said, but this is not something I've known. And I don't want to mislead you. I want to be open and honest with you. I said, but I do know a lot about this, this, and this. If you'd like to ask me about that to check my competency. Something amazing happened. I was expecting the interview to be over. Devendra sticks out his hands and he says, Mike, I'm hiring you. And I was thrilled. Then Devendra says to me, he says, Mike, I only have one problem with you. You didn't ask for enough money and you asked for the wrong position. And I was thinking he was just going to hire me or hire me for a junior position. He said, you applied to be a network engineer. He said, I'm going to make you a senior network engineer. And I looked at him like I had four heads. He said, Mike, a couple things. You are already more capable than half of my team. And you said, you've never even worked in tech before. This is your hobby. He said, and you're already more capable than half of the people I interviewed. He said, if you're this good right now, in 6 months, you'll be gone if you're a regular entry-level person. So I'm going to make you a senior engineer. And guess what? I think you're going to rise fast. Well, 6 months later, I was a CCIE and the lead architect of the team, one of the original Cisco certified internet experts, back when it was a 2-day test. 3 million people had attempted the exam before me. My number is 7417, and we started counting at 1028. So of the 3 million people that had previously attempted it before me, I was like the 6,400 guy to pass it. So that's how what comes from fighting to be great. So what employers want? They want someone that is energetic and we'll talk more about that, but they want someone that's competent and someone that's trustworthy. What is the next thing you want as a hiring manager? Someone that's safe. What does that mean? Know what you know what you don't know. Do you know how many businesses have been bankrupted by people that have done just goofy things on the cloud or the network of the data center? Do you know how many organizations that have multi-million-dollar bills because somebody configured something wrong in the cloud? Do you know how many organizations have been hacked because something went wrong on the cloud? Did you know the cloud is hacked multiple times per day and 16% of all cloud hacks are related to misconfigured S3 buckets? So we employers want people that are competent and safe, people that know how to do the job, know what they know what they won't know, and don't do things they don't know how to do without help and research. We need that. So someone that can do the job, someone that's trustworthy, and someone that can be competent and safe. What's next? Energy and enthusiasm. We need this. We need this. We need this. Guess what? Why do we need it so much? Well, if you like this, wake me up when it's time to work. No employer wants that. But more importantly, who do you think is going to work to learn it? The person that is excited about the tech, the person that loves the tech, they're going to learn it. If you hate it, you can't learn it. So employers want people that are energetic and enthusiastic. What else do employers want? They want some people that are called energizers, the emotionally intelligent people that raise the energy in the room and bring out the best in others. Do you want a negative person that walks in there and is grumpy? Oh, these people, that people, this is bad, that's bad. I don't want that on my team. It's going to make my team unhappy. As a manager, I want someone that's going to walk in. Hi, everybody. I mean, that's what we're looking for, that energy and enthusiasm. I'm looking for that Tyrone that left a message, I can't get enough listening to this. I want that. That's who I want to hear. I'm looking for the things have changed, love it, that I see from Jesse. That's what we're looking for the hiring manager. Benjamin in Nigeria that says, I'm so happy to be on this platform. Welcome, Benjamin in Nigeria. We've got probably 75 Nigerian students, and we're thrilled to have you here. But the point is like we want those energetic, enthusiastic, passionate people. That's what we hire. That's what does good. Be that. What else do we care about as a hiring manager? I want team players above all else. I want team players. Why is it so important? Look, here's the process. A cloud architect like me is going to design something. In the process of the design, I might have to do 6 months of research. I might need 50 cloud engineers to sit on site and actually do the research. Then I can fully design it. Then, well, after this design done, I might have to do a proof of concept. Now, again, that might take some engineers and some DevOps engineers to do it, which I'm going to lead that team, but I'm not going to be doing the building because I'm an architect, I'm a designer. Then when it works, I got to go present this thing back to the customer and sell it back to the customer. Then when it's time to build, I'm going to need some cloud network engineers, some DevOps engineers, some other kinds of engineers. There's always going to be people that I'm going to need on a team. It is so critical to be a team player. So critical to be a team player that it's one of the things we require. And don't think you're an architect that knows everything. That is not the case. You're going to have an architecture team. You're going to have some cloud infrastructure architects like me that are basically network experts working on the cloud. You'll have some cloud security experts. Again, that's someone like me that designs security systems on the cloud. Then you're going to have a generic cloud architect that knows a little about a lot of things. Then you're going to have a cloud IAM architect, which is different than security. IAM is its own special field. Then you're going to have a big data architect on your team. Then you have some database architects on your team. You get what I'm coming from? Lots of people working together. Know one thing and know it well. You can't know everything. It's impossible. Know one thing and know it well. That's why we need team players. The next thing that we need are people that go above and beyond. Organizations typically say that 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Guess what? That's not what we're concerned about. We are concerned about the people that can do the job. We want people to do the job. That's what we're concerned about. That's what we're looking for. So we want you to be there, motivated. The job's not done until the job's not done. That's what we're looking for in life. That's what we want. So now you know what hiring managers desire. Because if you know what hiring managers actually desire, then you're in a great position to know exactly how to be that. So let's go back to my wife. If I know, because she's told me, she likes black wedge shoes. I don't exactly know what that means, but I know she likes black wedge shoes. So when she goes to buy black wedge shoes, that's what she's looking for first. That's the first thing that she's looking for. So be whatever it is the hiring manager wants, and you will get hired. Now, this is the biggest place where I can tell you to focus somewhere if you want a great career. So, and of course, we'll answer all the questions in about 30 minutes when we're done with the presentation. People like me that have been architects for almost 3 decades know what architects do. We've been doing it forever. Now, in recent years, they've had these little certification courses called solution architect courses. And they're teaching everything other than architecture, literally speaking, everything other than architecture. And then what happens is people don't even know what an architect is. And we get cut and paste job descriptions. And because these job descriptions aren't even about architecture, because they're written by people that don't even know what the job is, what happens is HR brings them in, they speak to the hiring manager. The hiring manager can't to hire any of these people because they don't have any of the skills. The people have every skill other than the cloud architect skill. I'm going to say this again. The people have every skill other than the cloud architect skill. If you are a cloud architect, you study architecture. You don't study sysops, it's a different career. You don't study engineering, it's a different career. You don't study DevOps, it's a different career. You become great at architecture. So what is architecture? Architecture is system design. It's so bad that people not knowing what architecture is, and these job descriptions have gotten so bad that it prompted organizations like Gartner, which basically study tech and they study careers and they advise people. They're an advisory group. In the process of advising people, they help shape the course of the industry. So let's talk about it as follows. When Gartner looked at these cloud architect job descriptions, they looked at it the same way I did. And they said, what is this, a joke? This is not what architects do. Who are these people? So Gartner saw that and they basically said, well, here's what we're going to do. We don't believe any of this. We know it's crazy. We're going to start interviewing chief information officers to say, what do you want out of the people you hire as cloud architects? Because they know the job descriptions weren't real. They knew they were so disconnected from architecture. Architects don't do any of this. So they decided to say, okay, well, let's just see. Mr. and Mrs. CEO, what do you want in a cloud architect? So guess what? They answered them. CEOs from all over responded to this. And here's what ultimately happened. After the CEO or CIOs responded to these questions, Gartner made a big list, which they published in CIO magazine. Guess what? If you're an architect, you must read CIO magazine. CIO magazine is critical to the architect. Why? Half of your life is going to be at the CIO level. You're going to be convincing a customer they need technology. So you need to know what the CIO is reading, or the chief information officer. Guess what? CEO stretch the strategy for the company. CIO helps the CEO's strategy with the use of information technology. Who hires the VP of IT? Who hires the director of IT? Who hires the baseline hiring manager? So you want to be an architect, you want to get hired, be what they want. So here is what the CIO told Gartner they want, and it's widely published in CIO magazine. According to Gartner, cloud architects do the following. They lead the cultural change for cloud adoption. That is a leadership thing. They develop and coordinate a cloud architecture. That's a system designer. They develop a cloud strategy and coordinate the adoption process. Leadership skills. They find talent with necessary skills. Leadership skills. Assess hardware, software, and applications. Tech. Create a cloud record team. Leadership. Establish best practices for the cloud across the company. Leadership with tech mixed combined. Selecting cloud providers. Leadership and tech. And vetting third-party services. Leadership and tech. Overseeing governance, mitigating risk, all leadership. Working with the IT security people to monitor privacy and develop an incident response procedure, leadership and tech. Managing budgets and estimating cost, leadership. Operating at scale, leadership. Note, this is really important. These are the people that are giving you the budget. Note, they did not say configure once. They did not say CLI once. They did not say management console once. They did not say SysOps once. They did not say DevOps once. These are the people with the budget. And they did not say code. These are not architect skills. They are every other career other than architects. If you want to be an architect, do not learn Python. If you want to be an architect, do not learn Terraform. If you want to be an architect, don't learn to script. If you want to be an architect, do not learn SysOps. It'll kill your chance. If you want to be an architect, don't learn DevOps. If you want to be an architect, learn architecture or system design. These are big design positions. These are big business positions. They require executive presence, business acumen, negotiation skills, and the list goes on, and we'll talk about it. So train for the right skills for the right job. A cloud architect is not a configurer. They are not a builder. They are not a coder. They are a business leader combined with the tech. Half business, half tech. We design the systems based upon customer input, solving business problems, which means we need to understand the business. We present them, we document them, and we lead teams that can help build them. This is a leadership role. Lots of executive presence, lots of emotional intelligence, lots of presentation skills, lots of negotiation skills. Business, business, business married with tech. That's what architects are. So if you think you can become an architect by technical training only, you can't. If you think you can be an engineer by training to be an architect, you sure can. You think an engineer can easily transition to an architect? No, they need all this other training. It's completely different careers. Train for the career you want. So let's talk a little further about this. How do you become a cloud architect candidate, assuming you want to become a cloud architect? You do the following. First and foremost, you've got to be technically competent. There is no choice but to be technically competent. Technically competent means that you understand all of the things in the network in the data center and how to do those things on the cloud. I'm going to say again, you must know the network in the data center to be a competent cloud architect. There is no opportunity to do this otherwise. What is the cloud? Cloud is nothing more than a virtual network in a data center. It's the same stuff we've used for 30 years. Nothing's changed. The cloud isn't even new. First cloud I worked on was 1999. The next one was called Frame Relay. The next one was called ATM around 2000, 2001. Then it was the BGP 25 RFC 2547 VPN. That was another cloud. Then there was the VPS cloud. I've worked on more clouds than you can think. It's not new, and it's all the same tech. Just renamed. It's not new. So if you want to be able to do the job, you got to get technically competent. You must know the systems of the network in the data center and their corresponding services in the cloud. Why is this so important? And this is just so critical. It's important for the following reasons. You can't take things from one location and relocate them if you don't know what they are. You can't design a cloud architecture if you don't understand networking, IP addressing schemes, subnetting, supernetting, routing. You can't do it. You can try, but it's always never going to work. So technical competency means knowing the network and the data center, because all that you're doing as a cloud architect is taking these systems from one environment and putting them into a virtual environment. So you must know what you're moving. So What must you learn? Let's talk technical competency. Now, if you're with us, we have a cloud architect career development program that encompasses all of this in either 250 hours or 500 hours. 250 hours if you've got tech experience, 500 hours if you don't, and it's all packaged in one system. If you are with us, that is included at a very low price. But if you are on your own, I'm going to tell you what you still need to do. If you are not one of our students, in which case this is all covered if you're one of our students, and Chris from my team can put the link to the program and a 20% coupon code as well as a number to our office if you have questions. But if you are not with us, I want you to go to Cisco's page. I also want you to buy the book Internet Routing Architectures by Sam Halabi or Bassam Halabi. Critical book. It's a 20-year-old book, but we use it every single day. In addition to that, I want you to read about 3,000 to 5,000 pages from the Cisco site. I want you to learn about NAT, and NAT is not just to connect to the internet. I want you to deal with overlapping IP address in different businesses. I want you to learn one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, and all these use cases. So the book is called Internet Routing Architectures by Bassam Halabi. Next, I need you to read about 3,000 to 5,000 pages on NAT, on OSPF, on QoS, on rate limiting, on VLANs, VLAN tagging, like 802.1x tagging or ISL type trunking and tagging, VLAN trunking, all the L2 technologies, IPsec plus encryption, plus in addition to these things, I need to learn a lot more networking. So we talked about QoS, we talked about VLANs, you need to know real about BGP, you need to know subnetting and IP addressing and lots of summarization. You need to understand route redistribution because you're going to be dealing with these kind of things. And that's just the beginning of networking. But you can go to Cisco for about 5,000 pages and learn these kind of things. So realistically speaking, as follows, every student in my program learns somewhere between the CCNA level and CCNP level. That's minimum level of networking knowledge. The AWS Advanced Networking isn't even an intro to an intro to an intro of junior level networking. It's not even close. When I see people say this is a hard thing, I say, well, we don't want you touching our network because if you don't understand the network, you'll damage things. That isn't even an intro to an intro to an intro to be prepared to work. I need someone with more than a CCNA and almost CCNP skills. Minimum. So can't do it if you don't understand that. I don't care what anybody says. That's why people go on thousands of interviews and they get told no. And then they get told you need more experience. That you need more experience means you can't do the job and we don't want to be mean to you. You've got to have that level of networking. Then you must know servers, server architecture, virtualization in depth. So if you're not one of our students, go to VMware, about 500 pages, you can learn the virtualization piece. Virtual machines are the main compute platform on the cloud. They're 20-year-old technology. It's nothing new. So learn it from VMware, move it to the cloud. Cloud providers basically have no training on how their stuff works. They teach you the name of the service and how to configure it, which is great for engineers, but for we architects, it's wholly insufficient. So go to VMware and learn virtualization. Also learn about KVM virtualization and QEM virtualization. You can find that documentation all free on the internet. Then, when you're done that, here's what I need you to do. I need you to go to Docker and Kubernetes and start learning containers and container organization strategies. Again, 500 pages or so will work. Then when you're done that, I need you to go to F5 and really learn about load balancers. Again, 500 pages or so from F5 and you'll be good. Then I need you to learn all about DNS. I want you to read the Stevens TCP IP book. It's 20 years old. It is used by every Cisco certified internet expert like me. It explains the IP protocol. So the Stevens TCP IP book, that's something that's minimum junior level knowledge to know as well. Again, this book in itself is 3 times bigger than the AWS Advanced Networking course, but it's kind of like an intro to TCP IP. I need you to know that. Then I need you to go to Cisco, Palo Alto, Checkpoint, and learn all about firewalls. Again, a couple thousand pages will do that. I need you to then learn about IDS and IPS systems. Again, the same vendors, maybe 500 pages is enough to learn that. When you're done that, I need you to learn storage. And here, you need to know a lot. You may have to have an 8-hour discussion with somebody about their object storage. And knowing that S3 is or Blob or cloud storage is object storage, that's not an architecture work. That's nothing. You need to be able to have an 8-hour discussion. What is the organization doing? How are they managing their arrays? What types of RAID environments are they using? What are they doing with the metadata with the object storage? How does it integrate into the big picture? What kind of other storage platforms? Do they have fiber channel? Or are they IP-based? You got to know all this. It's critical information. It pertains to the moving. So you see where I'm coming from. You got to learn about the load. You have to know it all. So you need networking, minimum of 5,000 pages of networking, plus the, plus the Bassam Halab book, minimum, and probably about 10,000 pages on the other things to be competent. So with us, it's included in our 250 hour to 500 hour. But if you don't have that kind of knowledge, get your things from Dell EMC, from IBM, from Checkpoint, from Palo Alto, from Cisco, from Juniper. You need that kind of documentation. You need to learn about IAM, learn about TACX, learn about radios, learn about Active Directory. All this stuff is important. So now you know the basics of what to learn. Guess what? That's only a percentage of what you need. So that's the technical competency piece. Now, we'll talk about getting the experience piece, and we're going to talk about those other skills. You cannot get this job on the basis of technical excellence. You can have a CCIE and a Google Professional Cloud Architect and an Azure expert and an AWS Certified Solution Architect professional and be able to get hired if you're not customer facing. It's a customer facing role. So you've got to learn the following. Presentation skills. They have to be top notch because you're going to be presenting to the CEO and the CIO and the CFO constantly. You have to know business acumen so you can understand the customer's business, their financial statements, their business goals, and translate that into technology solutions to solve business problems. You can't solve business problems if you don't understand the business. So there's that. So we need basically half MBA skills. I have a lot of MBA type skills that I train in our program for the students because they need to know that. Then you need to develop executive presence so they can feel you and hear you, that they know you're in charge and capable. Done. When you're done that, you got to learn how to develop some killer presentation skills. Then you need to learn how to write like an executive. Then you need to learn ROI modeling. Then you need to learn negotiation skills. You can do all of these things on your own. You can go to Speakeasy in California. We've got a good intro to speaking class. They talk so people listen, a couple of $1,000 for a few days, well worth it. You can get a good interview coach for about $400 an hour. It's worth it to pay 6 hours to do this for someone. Why? Because average cloud architect earns $600 a day. If you go see one of these people and you spend $2,400, if they get you a job 2 weeks faster, you got 200% return on investment. If they get you a job 6 days faster, it's faster. Now, I do excessive interview training on our clients, including our program. And our program's cheap, but our program's cheap because we're basically a charitable mission that's sort of a business at the same time. But you got to know these things. So you need executive presence training. There's lots of organizations do it, a couple $1,000. If we're with us, it's included. If you're not with us, make sure you get this. It is super critical. So we talked about presentation, this. Now, emotional intelligence training. You must get it. We spend hours and hours and hours on emotional intelligence. Why? Emotional intelligence, statistically speaking, is the best predictor of success. Emotional intelligence will get you hired when others won't. And guess what? As a side bonus for studying emotional intelligence, statistics are clear. For average paying jobs, people who work on emotional intelligence training earn $29.6 thousand more per year than those that don't. So in a 30-year career, that's roughly $1 million. Now, that's with average salaries. With these tech salaries, it's much more. So that can be a double or triple that every year. So just studying emotional intelligence can make millions of dollars of difference in your overall career. And guess what? It helps you get hired. So do it. So now you know the skills are there for an architect. No, half of them are not technical. Now next, guess what is there? Certifications wise. And look, we bundle this all into a super cheap class because I don't need to work. And what we do, we love people. We work with people all over the developing world, and it makes us happy. But you've got to get certifications. What are certifications for? This is really critical. Certifications do not get you hired. Nobody hires you for any other certification other than the CCIE. The CCIE and the CEH Master, meaning the CEH with the practical exam, are the only two that are almost enough to get hired on their own. And here's why. You have to build something and prove it or do it in front of others. The rest of the certifications only get you an interview, but getting an interview is really good. Why do we use certifications? Improves your resume, makes it look good, makes you look desirable to the hiring manager, makes you look desirable to the executive recruiters that are going to put you in front of the hiring manager. So you're not getting stuck with HR. HR is the death. HR is the killer of your new job. HR are great, and we'll talk about why they're great, but you can't be using them for your first job. What kind of certifications do you need? Do not, under any circumstances, get a bunch of associate certifications. I'm going to say this again. Do not get a bunch of associate certifications. Here's the problem with the associate certifications. They're kind of like going to first grade. They're an intro to an intro. They're not quite enough to do the job. They give you some introduction into things. So Michael and others, I promise you will answer every question, and you will even take you off mute if you want. We're going to give you good detail and actionable steps. So because of this, employers know that if you get 4 associate certifications, it's like you went to first grade 4 times. Still not hireable. If you get professional certifications, that's when we employers are starting to say, okay, this person probably knows enough to maybe do the job. Let's talk to them. So get professional certifications, but make sure they're in your field or in things that look aligned. So if you want to be an architect, do not do sysops. Do not do DevOps. These are not your career, and it will make your resume look so bad that no one will want to look at you to be an architect. And if they do, they will drop your salary like a stone because you're going to look like a jack of all trades and a master of none. You're going to look like you have no idea what you want to be. It's going to confuse hiring managers. Your interviews are going to go down into the weeds. Don't have things that are not related to your resume. I don't put practicing medicine down on my resume unless I'm applying for healthcare because it's going to convince people and think what they are. I just list my tech things. So don't do things that are unrelated careers. So the Certified Solution Architect Professional for AWS, the Google Professional Cloud Architect for Google, and the Azure Expert are our mind's intro-level practice certifications. You must get one of them, minimum. Then, that's still not enough. We need something, either a network certification or a Linux certification or both for a generic cloud architect. For our cloud infrastructure architects like me, we want to see a CCNP or a CCIE, mostly a CCNP, mixed with the Certified Solution Architect Professional. But it depends on how much of a cloud networking architect you want to be. But just understand that. For security architects, Certified Solution Architect Professional, CEH Master, or Certified Solution Architect Professional with the CISSP, or Certified Solution Architect Professional with the CCSP. Note, we're picking big, heavy industry certifications. Note, I did not say AWS Advanced Security. Why didn't I say AWS Advanced Security? That's nothing. It's an intro to an intro to an intro to an intro to security. It's not enough to be hired as a specialist. Note, I didn't say AWS Advanced Networking. The people that are making these training courses have never even worked in networking and have no concept of networking. If you read the AWS Advanced Networking curriculum from Sybase and Amazon, it's too junior for anything. It's an intro to an intro to an intro. So get something big from industry, big industry one, the hard ones to get. Get the hardest industry one, combine it with the Certified Solution Architect Professional or equivalent, and you will be golden. That's going to give you the resume expertise. So get something, but make it focused. Everything that adds to your career. Cloud security, get security in cloud. Industry not. Cloud big data, get an Oracle certification, for example, with the Certified Solution Architect Professional. Make them aligned and match. Now, here's the secret. You've got to get your experience. You've got to be able to tell people you've done it. So here's what the students do in my program, and it's completely covered in the course's cost. By the way, the cost to do this on your own is double the cost of my program. But do it with me. Do it on your own. I don't care, but make sure you do this. I mean, I'd love to train you, but make sure you do this. If, for example, the following, if you want to really be hired, you've got to have something on your resume that shows you've got experience. My students put down Go Cloud Architect, and then they list all the labs they do. If you're not with us, you can still do this. Create a research and development section on your resume. In that research and development section on your resume, do the following. List all of the labs. These are the labs my students do. I strongly encourage you as my students or on your own to do these labs. Employers want people that know how to do the job, and this is a competency. First, install VMware ESXi and set up server virtualization. 2, after you install VMware ESXi, I need you to do the following. Build a container, a Docker's container. Now you're familiar with the 2 competing platforms in the cloud. All competing on the cloud is done in a container or virtual machine, and now you know them. Next, I want you to build an IP tables UFW firewall in Linux. Why? I need you to learn Linux, and guess what? In addition to learning Linux, I need you to learn firewalls. Then, build an open SSH VPN concentrator. Granted, we use IPsec for VPNs instead of SSH in today's modern world, but It will get, in most cases, it'll give you a chance to get familiar with VPNs, and it's a great thing, and you can build it on Linux. Then build the LAMP stack, Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. So you can say you've done it. Again, we architects don't configure, but I want you to know how to do it. After you've done that, and mind you, we're not doing this on the cloud, we're doing it on a server, and I'll tell you why later. Set up Microsoft Active Directory. When you're done that, set up NFS shares, so you can share files with Unix and Linux system. Then set up Sandbash shares, server message block protocol shares. Then set up Active Directory, and then all my students do this. Build a cloud. I mean it. Build yourself a Nutanix cloud, build yourself an OpenStack Ansible cloud, build a cloud. Federate your cloud with your Active Directory, build a darn cloud. I want you to be experts on the cloud. Build a cloud. Set up the storage, set up the data plane, the forwarding plane, the control plane. Set them all up. Build a cloud. Now you're a cloud architect because you actually know how to design the cloud. There's no mysticism in it for you. That's what I want you to do. So my students all do this as part of my program. If you're one of our students, wonderful. If you're not, make sure you buy a server. Minimum 16 cores, 128 gigs of RAM, with 3 SSDs and a RAID 0 array or an NVMe drive because you're going to need that kind of performance. 3 years, I'm no more than 3 years old, I'm no more than 7 years old. Now, when I recommended this to people 6 months ago to do, or 9 months ago, servers were $600. Now the server with this capacity, because I just bought like half a dozen more of them, are about $1,500 each. But it's worth it, it's worth it, it's worth it. You have to remember, an average cloud architect earns $600 a day, and a good one easily earns $1,200 or more. If you're experienced, you will get $300,000 a year job offers constantly. In the beginning, it's still average about $600 a day. So invest a little bit in your training, invest a little bit in your skills, and reap the rewards for the rest of your life. So what do? We talked about getting certifications that are focused. Focus your knowledge all on one thing, only one thing. Get professional certifications, get things from industry. Take as much free training as you can. Free conference training, online, virtual, what have you. Vendor training from AWS, it's great. Vendor training from Azure, it's great. Vendor training from GCP. Vendor training from Cisco. Vendor training from Palo Alto, from VMware. Get all of it. Get all of it. Get great in your things. That's how you build a great career. Now, on the communication skills, biggest part of the architect job. If you're with us, you've got training. If not, go find a communication skills coach. Get good at it. Get comfortable speaking, learn to deliver great presentations, learn to write, learn to make your writing easy to read. You may not know this. Did you know the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and even The Economist are written at less than an 8th grade level? Did you know that executives prefer to read sentences that are less than 11 words long? You've got to know these skills, because if you hand an engineering document to the CEO, they're going to laugh and the architecture is going to be lost. You have to speak the language of the people you're communicating in, so learn these things. With us, without us, become a master in this. Next, develop your emotional intelligence. It is super important. You've got to be the person that brings out the best in others and makes others feel good in your training. So, be this, it's important. If you're with us, great. If not, find Daniel Goldman and their training. Again, it's going to be a couple $1,000s to learn this. Ours is a fifth of the cost if you're in just this one module, but you need to learn this. You can't get these kind of jobs without it. You can get engineering jobs without this, but not architecture jobs. It's that critical. Now let's talk about tuning your resume. Resume is important. First and foremost, before we talk about tuning your resume, what's a resume? Seriously, what is it? A resume is as follows. It's an advertisement about you. It says, hire you. Absolutely. Hire you. So that's what's on the resume. And Michael will address your things as soon as possible. Love to definitely speak to you in any way you like. Chris can actually put our phone number in there to give you that information. So on Zoom. Chris, put our phone number on Zoom and YouTube, please. So when you're building our resume, here's what I need you to do. I need you to make people want to read it, because the resume is a sales document. It's an advertisement that says, hire you. It's saying, hire Isaac. And Isaac is an incredible IAM architect. So if he's going to be a cloud IAM architect, his resume has to look like this. Hire me, hire me, hire me. So do the following. Make people want to read it. At the top line of your resume, I want you to do the following. I want you to have something big. Mine says Mike Gibbs, MS, MBA, CCIE, Google Professional Cloud Architect, and I usually list an Amazon one. Usually, not always. Then that screams read me. Right beneath it, if you have an objective on your resume, get rid of that faster than you can imagine. An objective tells the employer what you want. Employer doesn't care what you want. Employer has needs that need to be met. Change that objective, which is basically enough to make me not look at a resume because it makes me think someone's selfish. They want to apply to a job for me and then they want to tell me what they want. That's crazy. So show how they can actually help me. So in the following manner, put an executive summary, something that shows how you can help the organization. For example, I might say something like experienced chief executive officer, experience designing billion-dollar-plus technology projects, as well as delivering them with great customer satisfaction. Ability to lead teams of 50 to 100 people, sell projects between 150, 100 and 200 million dollars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Show them how I've done that. Experience bringing out the best in others. I'm making up on the fly, so you have a chance to think about it. So then you've got to put your research and development section or your Go Cloud Architect section. If you're with us, basically you can make it look like a job and do all these things there. If not, you got to get your research and development section and talk about everything you did. Now, talk about the projects, build it, set up server virtualization with VMware ESXi for enterprise-wide computing, built Docker containers to promote whatever lightweight systems to promote for web apps. Set up an IP tables firewall for organization security, built and deployed a VPN concentrator for remote access employees, built an OpenStack Ansible cloud. Put these things in there. Here's why. Employers want people that are willing to go above and beyond. So look at it this way. You got one person that says, I set up an S3 bucket and configured an EC2 instance. I use an 8-year-old for that. She's really cute when she does. She pigtails and she clicks, and says EC2. But here's the key. You might be willing to pay someone $20 an hour for that, but you're not going to pay them $150 an hour to click a management console or use the CLI. You don't need it. It's a simple skill. You can even outsource that to places that are less expensive. You can't outsource architecture because you're customer facing. So put all these things that you've done there. Every lab you build a cloud, put it there. And then you got 2 resumes. One person set up an EC2 instance. You built an OpenStack Ansible cloud. Who are you going to hire as the hiring manager? When you're trying to get your first cloud architect job and you've got limited experience, you got to get this kind of experience. You got to show people that you are so much better than the rest that they can't live without you. So that's why we're so focused on these things. If you've done speeches, that's terrific. But make sure you do these. So hope I understood that. If you've written publications, write those publications. That's how you know what to do. The next part of our system is as follows. Just bypass HR. I'm going to say it again. Bypass HR. HR is the biggest obstacle in your way when it's your first job. And it's not because I don't like HR people. HR people are awesome. HR people are smart. They're highly educated. And HR people are excellent at the following. Hiring people that fit into an organization's culture. They're great at determining benefits packages. They're great at helping managers like me when we have problems with an employee know what to do. They're excellent, highly educated people. But what they are not are technology professionals. Not at all. HR has zero ability to determine your technical skills. Zero. So understand that. Because of that, they have to put up ways to thin the people that are going to apply for these jobs. So you have to understand this. A company like a cable company gets 3,000 applicants for a position, and nobody would consider the cable company a high-performance organization. A high-performance organization gets 5,000 applicants for a single position. So if you're HR, what are you going to do with your job descriptions? You're going to make them so complicated. I want 3 Olympic gold medals, 20 years experience in this, 10 years experience in this, experience from this career, this career, this career. Why? You're trying to whittle down the 100,000 people that will apply to maybe only 5,000. So then from there, you can parse it down. That's what they're trying to do. The problem is as follows. When the HR does this, they finally find people that they want to bring in for an interview. And say HR does an initial interview. And then they send them to you. By the time these people get through that have had 20 years experience in 20 different careers, they don't know anything about anything. They know a little bit of other things. Now you need an architect, but you can't hire them because they don't know anything about architecture. They know DevOps, they know SysOps, they know scripting, they know servers, but they don't have any concept of that. So that you can't hire them. So you interview, and you get tired. So you call your favorite tech recruiter. My favorite is a guy, Steve, in New York. I've used him for years. I've interviewed with 5 companies in my career. I've gotten hired by all 5 jobs because I knew how to interview. But here's the point. I call Steve and I say, Steve, I need an IAM architect. And Steve says, okay, Mike. I said, what do you need? I say, you know me, Steve. It's all attitude, energy, enthusiasm, passion, love of tech, because I want these people great. I want someone I can trust. Steve called me back the next day and says, I got this guy, Isaac, for you. Isaac's got a huge background in networking and telecom, and he knows IAM better than anybody I've ever spoken to. I want you to interview Isaac. So I'm like, Steve, I trust you. Send him to me. Isaac now comes to me. Now, guess what happens when Isaac comes to me? My friend Steve, a relationship that I've got for 20 years, told me Isaac's great. I already like Ira. I already like Isaac until he proves otherwise. So if I interview Isaac and he does a good job, he's hired because I'm pre-biased to like him and he knows what he's doing. If he doesn't know what he's doing, I have 2 choices. I can say, sorry, we're going in another direction. Now I know Isaac and his IAM skills are extraordinary. Or if I didn't like Isaac, and this would never happen, I'd say, sorry, you don't have experience. It's better to say, sorry, you don't have enough experience than to say, Isaac, you don't know what you're doing. We can't do that. It is absolutely, absolutely, absolutely critical that we leave people after an interview with a good taste in their mouth. So we will never tell our employees the real reason in most cases. We will give them a euphemism like, you don't have enough experience. If we interviewed you, it's not an issue. So we use the HR. So here's the process. I call Steve. Steve sends me Isaac. I interview Isaac. I love Isaac. Isaac's awesome. So I say to Isaac, I'm going to make you an offer. I then call HR and I say, HR, I'm hiring Isaac K. Isaac K is awesome. In fact, I like him so much, I want him paid 1.2 times the average cloud architect in this organization. That's where I want his comp ratio to be, because he's 20% better than the rest. His attitude, his energy, and enthusiasm, I like him. Here's what's next. HR will make me the package. I will call Isaac and offer him the position. I will send him the offer letter. He'll accept it. Isaac is super smart. I know Isaac. So he's going to work. Within 3 months, his manager is going to love Isaac. He's going to love him. Isaac's energetic, enthusiastic, hardworking. After 3 months, I'm going to say, wow, I'm going to put Isaac on a leadership track because I trust him so much and he's that good. A year later, Isaac's promoted. A year later, he's going to get an email from HR. Most likely, it happens all the time. Sorry, Isaac K. You did not meet the requirements of our organization due to your lack of experience. Please apply it another time. I will tell you, everybody that gets hired this way, a third of them will actually get a rejection letter from HR 6 months later after they're already working there or even promoted. Now, they don't take your job away. I'm just trying to show you how far HR is disconnected from the hiring process when you use recruiters. I've been hired and promoted in companies and then got rejection letters from HR after I've already worked there. It's happened to everybody I've ever worked with that knows how to get a job this way. HR has got their standards. Hiring managers have their standards. Who do I care about you preparing for? The hiring manager. The hiring manager says yes or no. HR is just, how much are we going to pay you? But even as the hiring manager, I have control by talking to about things like comp ratio. So don't really worry about it. Be what the hiring manager wants and you'll be hired. Skip HR, go straight to the hiring manager. When you don't have a lot of experience, you don't have any choice. You need to be in front of the hiring manager. Now, what's also important when you don't have experience? Your attitude has to be so good. Your enthusiasm has to be so good. The quality of who you are and who you are has to be so good that they can't help it. So I'm going to say one last thing. I really want you guys to get this. Super, super, super important. If the hiring manager likes you, everything changes. When people like you, they pay you more. When people like you, they hire you. Do you know that when you interview for these jobs, 50% of your score is related to your competency and 50% is not related to your competency? It's related to your energy, enthusiasm, soft skills, emotional intelligence, presentation skills. So I want you to think about this as a new person getting your first job. You really think it's feasible to become a 50 out of 50 on technical competency with no experience? Probably not. Maybe my 26-year-old prodigy Jesse, inside of a year or two, can do it, but he's 26. I think he does 14 hours a day of studying in between his other jobs. So he might be able to do it. But as a rule, I can get a good student, a smart person, a really capable person to about 35 or 40 out of 50 inside of about 16 weeks if they've got tech experience, and about 32 weeks if they've never worked in tech in their life. That is extraordinary. And by the way, that's better than 80% of the people that have experience. But what I can do from almost everyone is the following. I can get your level of emotional intelligence, attitude, energy, enthusiasm, all these things up to a 50 out of 50. So now look at it this way. I've interviewed 5,000 people in my almost 30-year career. 5,000 people. Guess what? 10 were good of the 5,000. I'm not joking, 10 were good. All but 4,950 have lied to me, which again, couldn't hire them. So just go out there, prove some degree of competency, be exceptionally good at what you are, and you will have an incredible career. The secret is being so likable, having such a good attitude that the organization needs you. I will give you 2 personal examples. We'll call the first one Avi. Avi comes to me at one of the world's largest internet service providers, and he interviews for a network engineering job. And I interview Avi, and I say, Avi, I say something like, tell me about the type of LSAs and OSPF. And Avi says to me, I don't know anything about LSPF, Mike, but I really want to. I said, okay. I said, tell me about the frame relay cloud, how the VPCs work or the PVCs work. He says, I've never worked on frame relay, Mike. And I said, okay. I said, tell me about which path would be preferred in this situation with BGP. And he says, Mike, I've never worked with BGP. And I said, okay, Avi, what have you worked with? And he says, Windows NT 4.0. And I'm like, okay, great. This is a networking thing. So I said, okay, tell me about the domain controllers. Tell me about the ACLs related to actual access of files. Avi knew Windows like you couldn't believe. Windows is not networking, but he knew it really well. I said, Avi, what other patterns do you have, hobbies do you have? And he told me about one. I said, tell me about it. He was so descriptive. See, here's the thing with Avi. His attitude was so good. His knowledge of Windows was so good, which taught me he could learn. He was so likable that I said, Avi, I'm going to hire you. Now, I went to my manager and said, Devendra, I'm hiring Avi. And Devendra's like, you're hiring Avi? I said, I'm hiring Avi. They're like, what's Avi know? I said, I like him a lot of the Windows NT and music. And he said, so why are you hiring him? I said, he has the best attitude of anybody I've interviewed in a month. And he's the first person that didn't lie to me. So he starts laughing hysterically. He's like, it's on you, Mike. So I personally trained Avi. Avi was a rock star. Avi got promoted some more. Avi now is the CEO of an organization that develops Chromebooks, and he distributes it to the developing world. So that people who could never have afforded a computer have computers like me. He's trying to help the world. Avi has come so much so far. His attitude was so good, I hired him. I've hired many people like this, like Steven Spivak says, we hire based on attitude, we can teach skills. So you have to have the skills, but make sure you have the perfect attitude, energy, enthusiasm. Do that and you'll be hired, and you'll be hired every time. Now, at this point, I am open to answering any questions that you may have, but prior to me doing that, let me talk about our training for 5 minutes, and then I will spend 1 hour and do any kind of coaching any of you desire. We have a Cloud Architect Career Development Program. Chris can put the link as well as a coupon for everyone here, as well as the number to our organizations. Our Cloud Architect Career Development Program is a 16-week, assuming you have experience in tech, and if you've never worked in tech before in your life, a 32-week training program to be a cloud architect. It is an extensive program. Twice per week, we do live training sessions. And these are typically architecture training sessions where it's just like the real job. The students will come to these calls. They will ask me in my business, legal, technical, and regulatory requirements of a system. Then what will I do? The students will then ask me a series of questions. You know, my business goals, my technology systems, all of it. All they'll ask 1,000,001 questions. Then, like a real cloud architect, my students will turn it into a cloud architecture that will be built on at least 2 clouds every time. It's always the AWS cloud and another cloud. It's usually AWS and Azure, but sometimes it's AWS and Oracle, sometimes it's AWS and GCP. It's always AWS because it's the most ubiquitous cloud. And generally speaking, we do Azure next. I'm certified in Google, but you know what? Google is 5% of the market share. We love the Google Cloud, but since it's only 5% of the market share, we focus mostly on things that are going to get people hired. Study AWS first if you want to get hired. Study Azure second if you want to get hired. Study GCP third if you want to get hired. Because when it's your first job, you need to be marketable to a lot of people. And having the most customers, the biggest cloud is probably your best path. So make sure you do that. So make sure you've got the skills to do the job. Make sure you're ready to do the job, and you're going to get hired every single time. So twice per week, we have live training. In between the live training sessions we do twice per week, my students actually watch videos and do homework assignments, presentation skills, emotional intelligence training, executive writing, executive presentations. My students do it all. So twice per week, they do live training where they can ask questions. It's all on Zoom. And in between classes, my students have the opportunity to do their cloud architect training by watching videos, doing homework assignments for which they submit to Slack, and they get feedback. What good is a project if you don't get feedback? What good is a class if you don't have it live and the ability to ask questions? So twice a week live questions, students do work in between classes. Then we have a lab program. Our lab program is the envy of the world. Every student, literally speaking, every student we have builds and works with server virtualization, containers, they build firewalls, they build VPN concentrators, they build the LAMP stack, really all of it. They set up file sharing with Windows and Linux. They set up Active Directory, and all my students build their own cloud. I can't release someone and call recruiters on someone's behalf and say, I've got a cloud architect for you if they don't know the cloud. So my students do that. So that's where our formula flows. We do live training twice per week. In between live training, our students do videos on demand. Then they build projects, so they've got a resume. We work on resume reviews. We work on interview skills. We work on emotional intelligence. We teach salary negotiation. We teach business negotiation, and more and more and more. We teach you everything ready to get your job ready. And when you're done, we have 200 plus recruiters in our network. And here's what we do. If a student does all the work and we know they're ready to be hired, we'll call a recruiter on somebody's behalf. I get asked to be hired literally 3 times a day. I'm not joking. 3 times a day, recruiters ask me, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? I use those for my students. I don't, but you know what? I've got this great guy and girl, and she's ready to be hired. I recommend this person. I do it every single day. So that's the basis of our training program. So now you know all about our training. We basically do it for a single day's pay for what average cloud architect pay, because we're really trying to help people build a better career. Average cloud architect earns $600 a day. Realistically speaking, we can probably help most people get a job 6 months sooner than they ever could on their own, at least. That's worth about $70,000 to our customers. We train emotional intelligence, and go look up the statistics on emotional intelligence. On average, training emotional intelligence increases someone's salary by about $30,000 a year, 29.6 to be specific. We teach that, meaning that should give you a huge benefit over your career. We teach the communication, we teach the architecture, we teach it all, basically a single day's pay. So our goal is to get you there as fast as possible. So at this point, I will open it up for any kind of questions we have, questions about our training, questions about your career. Chris from my team has been aggregating all these questions, and now it's the fun time to answer everybody's questions. So Chris, you want to show me the questions and where they're coming from, which media, so I can so I know where they're coming from? Because I think we've got some in lots of different places. Okay, so bear with me. I'm looking at the wrong screen probably, Chris. Bear with me, Chris. Okay, from some VV, I know you sometimes go by. Please help create a video on AWS Service Catalog for Aurora or Postgres. So BV, what do you want to know about it? For example, we don't specifically seeking, we typically don't talk about Aurora, and we typically talk about the types of databases to use and when, where, how, and why. So we're happy to talk about database architectures, or how do you scale an architecture, or how do you design a database. We'd love to do it, but we focus on architecture. So could you tell me what kind of architecture thing you're looking to look for? And I'd love to do it for you. Like, exactly what would you like to know about them? And after you tell me that, okay, so AfriP, Is there a networking course in relation to the CCNA coming soon? Well, AfriP, you actually have access to the AWS Advanced Networking, which I said is very basic. My team and I are actually creating a real heavy cloud network architect program, which is going to be basically CCIE level. It's based upon myself and my good friend Imran. I've been a CCIE for 20 some years. Imran's got 3 CCIEs. So realistically speaking, there's that. We are most likely going to on YouTube within the next 4 to 6 weeks. If my interns can help me redraw my slides, what we're going to do is I'm probably going to do a free CCNA program out there. So the answer is yes. But in the refilm, we have a lot more AfriP serious network training. Chris was over my house during the entire holiday weekend, and we filmed and filmed and filmed and filmed some more. There's a lot more networking coming in the next 2 weeks at no additional cost, AfriP. So the next question was coming in, Chris. I think there's a few. I see one from Amit. Okay. So Amit says, Amit Kumar Sharma, you're in technical support for 10 years and have no experience in cloud computing. That's okay. Here's the thing, Amit. I went from a nurse to a lead architect inside of 6 months. So it's a complete option for you. I've had students, Amit, that didn't know how to install an operating system that have become cloud architects. So of course, here's one of those things I like about technical support, and I think it's actually a very good, a very good career. So when you're in support, here's what happens. My systems aren't working. Get over here now. You got somebody that calls you when they're angry. Big problem in it. What does a good support rep do? Okay, I'm sorry, sir, ma'am. Let me know what's going on. Okay, I understand you're having some challenges. I promise I'm going to do whatever I can to help you. Bear with me for a few minutes. And after you've done that, here's the following. Bear with you, you keep them happy, you fix the relationship, and then you solve their problem. So Amit Sharma, one of the most critical skills for the architect is being emotionally intelligent and develop customer service skills. Customer service people or people that have good tech support skills make great architects because they're used to taking people that are frustrated and stressed and making them relaxed and bringing out the best in others. That is a massive, massive, massive skill. We just need to teach you the network and the data center and the cloud, and you'd be good to go, and all those business things. So Emmett, we could easily get you there if you desire, and it's a great place to be, and no problem getting you there. Are there any other questions for me? There's usually a lot. I see Arif is here. So happy to have you back.
I think people might be taking a long holiday.
That's quite possible. It is a holiday week. Anybody on Zoom want to come off mute and ask questions? And anybody on YouTube, feel free to ask questions too. Okay, so here's a question. It was private, but what I'll do is I'll send you the question so you can actually pop it up on screen, Chris, because it's a good question. That's wrong one. That's what you do on a Mac. Sorry. So this question came in, and it's a great question. How would a systems administrator become an architect? So how does a systems administrator become an architect? In the following manner. The first thing that's necessary is as follows. You have to learn architecture. So first, it's a matter of learning system design. So you have to learn how to design systems. So as a systems administrator, here's what happens. You're typically configuring things, which is really great. And as an architecture, you're not configuring, you're designing. So when you have these deeper engineering roles or these configuration roles, and you want to move into architecture, you need to take a step back. A lot of times, the hardest people to actually become architects are the best engineers. And here's what I mean by the best engineers being the hardest. My engineers want to dive deep on every little thing. The architects design the end-to-end package. So here, And Jason, I'm so sorry to hear that, but I'll be able to help you in a minute with that. So we'll help you. So we should teach you end-to-end design. So first, that means really understanding how the network and the data center works. As an architect, you're not going to configure. We have administrative people for that, engineering people, but we are going to be designing them. So it's a matter of taking that, what do? Do you get into VI and you edit a file and do things, as opposed to thinking about what you're doing more than how to do it. So how does the network work? How do you load share across two equal cost links without having out of order packets? How can you optimize the security? How can you solve this business problem with technology? That's the piece there. That's the piece, how do you go from admin to architect? Then it's about really enhancing those communication skills. It's about enhancing those presentation skills. It's learning how to be relevant to the CEO, relevant to the CFO, relevant to the CIO, learning how to speak to visual, kinesthetic, and auditory types, learning the difference between the intuitive personality types like me and most CEOs versus the functional personality types versus the analytical personality types, because we all speak a different language. RY modeling showing the technology. So basically, for Michael, who asked this question, we can get you there. It's not a problem. You just got to learn those skills. We'll get you there. You'll have a great career. So I just wanted to make sure you understand how to do that. Now, it looks like some other things popped up. Science, good evening. I'm well, and yourself? So let's go to the next question. Jason Lopez. You have all associate certs and a practitioner. I get really sad when I actually hear this, but that's okay. I'm going to find a way to help you anyway. I just got your first support role, but you're not sure if you want to do solutions architect in the future or DevOps. You guess you need more time in a support role, and that will become clear. Well, Jason, I'm going to give you some recommendations for the future. Don't get any more associate roles. In fact, try not to get any associate roles, do an associate and go straight to the professional. What happens is these associate exams are hard. All exams are hard. It doesn't matter if it's the pro or the associate, they make them hard. The problem is we need you to have the professional search to get the better jobs, whether it be in DevOps, whether it be anything else. Otherwise, you're going to get all junior positions. So figure out what you like and do a professional version. So the question becomes for you, Jason, is what do you like? Do you like going out there and talking to people? Do you like presenting to people? Do you like doing ROI modeling? If so, that's architect work. Are you a programmer, Jason? Because you can't be a DevOps professional without being a programmer first. Do you know how to code, Jason? Do you like to code? Is coding something there? After the coding, because you're going to be a DevOps engineer, you've got to be a professional coder. You need to know Python, shell scripting, Java. You're going to need to know a lot of programming languages to be a real, for example, a real DevOps engineer. It's not like you just take the certified solutions architect professional and the DevOps professional, and now you have a DevOps career. No. They are the two certifications that look good there, but that's not even close to enough to actually do the job. So Jason, if you tell me a little bit more about yourself, what you actually enjoy, do you like being in front of customers? Do you like being behind the computer? Do you like networking? What do you enjoy? If you enjoy that, I will give you whatever answers I can and help you. And if you want to come off and ask real questions live to improving your career, you can come straight on the Zoom questions and even ask live via voice. I really want to help you. So science. Okay, Perez, great question. If we go after the CCSP but don't meet the 5 years, is there another cert you would recommend? Well, generally speaking, CCSP doesn't need a lot, where the CISSP needs 5 years or so. I will tell you this, look deeply into your security background. In many cases, the CISSP, if you actually look deeply into your security background, you can find it. For example, maybe you're working in networking, you've been doing a lot of access control lists on routers. Maybe you're a security guard doing some physical security. Maybe you've been setting up firewall policies. Maybe you've been setting up a lot of access control. Maybe you've been doing biometric scanners like fingerprint scanners. Maybe you've been running around an organization for years talking to people about how to install endpoint protection. Maybe, for example, you've been coaching people on avoiding phishing. A lot of times, if we look hard enough, we can find those 5 years in a lot of people. So in many cases, we can find it. We can't completely lie about it, though. So we start there. But you can definitely do it. But we don't recommend the A+, we don't recommend the Net Plus, we don't recommend the Security Plus, and here's the reason why. They're not bad certs at all. Lots of great things inside them, but the supply and demand curves don't help us, and they don't hold a lot of market value when it comes to security. So that's our recommendation. Science. Science, can you please suggest ways for you to get a high salary? Your salary is this, science. Technical competency, meaning focused knowledge in one thing. Focused knowledge in one thing. All your salary is determined is related to everything other than your tech. So when I was younger, it was back in around 2001, I had a manager that said, Mike, do you know how you go from the $100,000 engineer to a $300,000 engineer? And I said, no, but I want to know. He said, you think it has anything to do with tech? And I said, yes. And he says, you're wrong, Mike. It has nothing to do with tech. It all has to do with your presentation skills, your communication skills, your executive presence, your emotional intelligence. Guess what I did? With his help and my own money, spent $250,000 on soft skills, communication training, behavioral science training, presentation training. It was paid back within a year. And the rest of my years was good. So that's how important these skills are. Yes, my training is $800 and it's really a $25,000 course. And the reason I do it is I want to help people get hired. I love tech. I've enjoyed it forever. I don't need to work. I just want to help people get their favorite tech jobs and build great careers. That's why we have a course like this. So if you want to become a cloud architect, you can do it with us. If not, earlier in this video, we gave you all the places where you can get all your information. For example, you can learn about networking from Cisco in about 5,000 pages. You can learn some of the base networking things. After the 5,000 base pages of networking from Cisco, here's the next thing you can do. For example, you can go and learn about virtualization from VMware, and as well as KVM and QEMU. Then when you're done that, make sure you learn containers from Docker and Kubernetes. When you're done that, learn about firewalls from Cisco, Cisco, Juniper, Checkpoint. Again, that's a couple thousand pages, but you need to do it. Learn about IDS, IPS systems. Again, it's a couple thousand pages. Do that. It's all covered in my system, but I'm just telling you how to do it if you're not with us. Then when you're done that, read about Active Directory from Microsoft. Microsoft actually has good documentation. It's more than the name of the service and how to configure it. Then when you're done that, learn about VPN technologies. Read from Cisco, Juniper, Checkpoint all again, Palo Alto about VPN concentrators. Go to Dell EMC and learn storage. You can get this stuff done in about 10,000 pages, no big deal. Of course, it's covered in our stuff and it's neatly broken down for you. Then you got to take some training to present. Got to get some training to do ROI modeling. You've got to get some negotiation training. You've got to get executive presence training. You have to do this. It's included in our training, but again, you could do these on your own. There are courses that do that. You won't find them on Udemy. These are expensive courses, but do it. That's how you get a high-paying job at any of the cloud providers, any of them. So, hope I answered your question. Chris, are there other questions? I'm pretty sure there are. That's a good question coming from Zoom. How do you negotiate your salary after you got your first offer? Well, good question. So I evaluate this for the person that asked this in the following way. Can I afford to lose that offer? And if the answer is no, I don't try and negotiate it. Don't negotiate something you're not willing to lose. Then the first thing that I do, which is what Harvard suggests, is to figure out what's called your BATNA, or your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. The stronger your BATNA, or your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, the better your position is. So if you apply for 2 companies at the same time, and you've got 2 offers, You can easily use one and say, I'd love to take this, but I've got another offer here coming from this. If it's coming from a competitor, the companies will work so hard to steal you from the competitor, they'll pay you even more. So when you're desirable and more people want you, you can ask for more. So the first thing is your best alternative to negotiate an agreement. So if you've got two offers, offer one is this, offer two is this, that you've got a good position, your back fallover. If you don't have a good fallover, don't do it. Now let's look at it this way. When you get your offer, now compare that to your current job. Is it worth it? For example, I had a student and he was given a job offer, and it was like 10 years ago. And it was like, Mike, it's an $80,000 a year job offer. What should I do? I said, you did the CCNP while you were in school with me. I said, you know BGP really well. I said, I don't think you should take this. And he said, why not? I said, because a month later, you're going to get a much better offer. And he said, should I negotiate it? I said, try. I said, because you can afford to lose this. So this really smart young person went to negotiate it with him, and they said, this is all we're willing to pay. And he's like, what do I do, Mike? And I said, say no. He said no. A month later, he worked at one of the 10 largest internet service providers in the world with a much higher salary. A year later, he was the largest networking vendor in the world. 2 years later, he was a senior product manager, all by 24 years old. So don't negotiate something you can't. If it's the range that's not normal, what you do is you get some substantiating evidence. You show that the average salary for this position is this related to your experience. You show how it's not enough. You show how competitor organizations are doing this. You build yourself some data. So first, determine what your thing is. And the reason you're building that BATN, or your best alternative negotiating agreement, is you know when to walk away. So when you're negotiating, it's as follows. You got to do the following in these things. So here's what my recommendations are. First, find some area of common ground with the person you're negotiating with. Separate the person from the problem. You can't destroy the relationship with the hiring manager or the HR for a company you want to join. So you've got to build your position. I'd really like to accept this position, but I can't because of this, this, and this. Is there a way we can work it out? I know you've got a limited budget constraint, for example. Obvious to me. What could we do instead? Can I work from home? Worth a lot, saves you on commute. Can I have an extra 2 weeks vacation? There's usually some wiggle room you can play with. Can you give this if you can't do that? There's almost always some. For example, I had a job offer and it was one of the best jobs I ever wanted. But part of the job was that I was going to be taking night flights everywhere. I was offered the job and I said, I love it, but I can't take it for this reason. They said, what's that? I said, I can't sleep on airplanes and you want me to travel every night on night flights. I said, I'm just not happy. For example, there was one. There was another time where somebody made me an offer and it was a really low offer. And I just said to them, I said, look, I love this. Here's where I'm at now. I said, if we can meet somewhere in between, I'll be there. But I can't really tell my wife I'm going to take a $100,000 pay cut just to do something that's going to make me happy. You know what? It came up $110,000. So provide a rationale, provide some substantiation. The person that asked that question, you actually have a very good 30-minute video with all the details how to do that. That's actually included in your program. And it was refilmed last weekend. And it's being edited by Chris, and it will be there very soon. So I hope I answered your question there too. Rammers, of course, ask questions. Come off mute. That's the whole point of these things. Ask questions.
Hi, Michael. This is Ramiz. How you doing? You okay?
Wonderful, Ramiz. And you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. So I'm based in the UK.
Gather that.
And I come across your videos, I think the last week or so, and really kind of inspired and stuff. So my situation very quickly is I was in a different sector for about 10 odd years and stuff, and decided to have a career change. So I decided to study a degree in computing. I'm in my final year at the moment. And I basically, in my third year, I decided cloud computing is where I want to go into.
Good.
Currently looking at AWS, etc. But coming across your channel, you know, it's very different because you kind of, it comes across certainly to myself that you're very experienced in the actual field, like, you know, real life, which is exactly what I'm looking for. The question that I have is, I'm 33 years of age, okay? And I feel sometimes I get this, is it a bit too late or not? But still, I continue to keep striving. So at what age did you change from the healthcare sector to the tech?
Well, I'm going to tell you two things, and I'm going to make a video on this. I have some really smart people like the 25-year-old prodigy Jesse that I was talking about that I'll be able to get hired. It is so hard to get someone that's under 30 hired for an architect job. It's 40 is the perfect age, 30s is great, 50 is great, 55 is great, even 60 is great. It's really challenging for a young person. I want to make that clear. An architect is a strategic advisor. And if you're going to go to the CEO and talk about $1 billion deal, it's really hard for a 23-year-old to do that. A 35-year-old is in a great position. So I have special training that I do with the young people, and I work with them for extended periods of time because I got to make their personality shine so much. So first, 33 is almost too young. I'm exaggerating the point, but it's a perfect age. When I left healthcare and went into tech, I believe I was about 25 years old, 26 years old.
Okay.
I was a bit different though. Because I come from medicine, could read very fast. I read 1,000 pages a day every single day. So that was me then. Now I'm going to tell you this. I was an engineer first and I became an architect. And it wasn't really until I was 30 that my architecture career really blossomed. And here's what's different. When I started my architecture career, I was Mr. Tech. I mean, I was good at it. I was one of the world's leading authorities on IP multicast. I would travel 300,000 miles a year on just a single airline just to consult in IP multicast. I would leave my house in New Jersey. I'd go to Reading, UK, I'd speak. I'd go to London, I'd speak. I'd be in Dubai the next day to speak. I'd be in Hong Kong after that. I'd go down to Australia. Then I'd be back in Dubai, back in the UK. I didn't see my wife for years. That was when I was techie. Then I joined the best tech company in the world. I won't say the name. And my manager basically told me, soft skills, soft skills, soft skills, leadership, management. He said, Mike, you're not like the rest of these people. I said, what do you mean? He said, these people are geeky engineers. You like to communicate. You ask questions. He said, look, study leadership, study emotional intelligence, study training this. Literally speaking, I got 3 promotions in about 1.5 years in one of the world's largest tech companies, and that never happens. I changed from a pre-sales engineer / architect role to the lead architect in $1 billion industry, basically running $1 billion vertical. So, you know, all of that happened from that. So 33 is great. Learn the compute because it's good. Realize the things that you have to learn are not taught in school. You need to learn the network and the data center. The whole cloud is just a network and a data center. So you got to learn all these things. I've been an architect for as long as I can remember. And that's why our architecture training looks different. I didn't just wake up one day and say, I want to make architecture training like the rest. I've been an architect since the beginning. Learn how all the pieces and parts work together. Build the fundamentals. You know, Bruce Lee said it. I don't fear the man that's done 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man that's done one kick 10,000 times. Learn basic networking, but be good at it. Learn servers and be good at it. Learn the operating systems and be good at it. Learn the way CPUs and memory architecture works. Focus on those business skills, focus on those communication skills, and no one will be able to stop you.
Excellent. That's fine. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. And again, I've got a process to work with young people, and I've got it. And I love working with young people because they're full of energy and they learn quicker than people like me at my age learn. But with young people, we have to get rid of the perception of how are they going to advise somebody on how to spend millions of dollars or billions of dollars. That's the hard part with young people. The strength of the young people is they're typically excited, energetic, enthusiastic. So Perez, the dev, I have a video series that I'm making on how to get fresher roles. The first one we released yesterday. which talked about the market forces that are basically causing it hard to get entry-level jobs and what to do instead. Today we talked about, I believe today's the day where we talked about some jobs that are in demand. And then we'll have another one. We'll talk about the certifications. We'll talk another one about what hiring managers want and how to leverage your uniqueness as a young person when getting a job. So we have that out too, Perez. My associate can put a link to that in the class because at youth, you require special help. So I hope I answered that. Who else has a question? Any other questions for me? It's not usually this quiet. Okay, well, I'll wait and see if there's any questions. For the people on Zoom, if anybody would like a phone call back from me, let me know. I'll put my phone number in here. Well, I should say our company phone number. It used to be my personal phone number. Now all the executives in this company pass the phone around.
Michael, I have a couple of more questions.
Sure. Yeah, why not? We're here.
Excellent. I kind of seen a couple of the comments in regards to the services that you offer as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a promo currently. What would you say? What makes your training different to say the likes of, like, there's so many other providers online? I know you've mentioned numerous times that you've got extent knowledge.
Yeah, sure. So great question. So I will tell you this. I bought every training package that exists before I started this because I had no desire to do this. I was retired.
Okay.
After purchasing every program that existed, here's what I found. They teach the name of the service and how to configure it. Here's S3, here's how to configure it. So when I asked, I interviewed 1,000 people. If I ask an AWS certified solution architect professional, what is object storage? Here's what they tell me, S3. Now, if I asked you, what is object storage? How does it work and why you would use it? The passing role in an interview would be object storage is a type of storage network technology that takes data and breaks it down into objects. Now, because it's a storage area network, it's going to be you're going to be receiving the information over the network, be it either iSCSI or fiber channel or something to that platform. Why object storage is so unique is when the data is broken down into objects, each object has metadata, which is effectively data about the data. Because each object has metadata, it enables you to search for part of a files, it enables you to query your systems. It can basically be integrated into big data environments because you can query that data. In fact, in most object storage environments, you can basically run SQL queries. Now, object storage isn't really real storage. It's much more like a database. And the way that it's structured, for example, is you take your data, and it's in this database-like structure, and there's just a pointer to it. So while you can make object storage feel like real folders and structures, remember, it's not hierarchical storage, it's flat storage. Now let's talk about when you could use object storage. Object storage is used for software distribution purposes, automated software release cycles, distributing content. You can't use object storage by a host because it's not host-based storage. You can't install an operating system or any files that change frequently on it because by the nature of object storage, every time something changes, it creates a new version which will fill up your RAID arrays. I'd go on for this for about 20 more minutes in the description. None of that is actually covered in any of the AWS training courses that you find on Udemy or from any of those providers. It's just simply the name of the service and how to do it. The reason I created this program was as follows. I interviewed 1,000 people that were AWS certified. Not a single one knew anything more than the name of the service and how to configure it. That's why there are 100,000 plus AWS jobs that are open and nobody can hire them. The only people that are hiring that are doing the Udemy courses or those other courses that are coming from that one continent are the people that have 20 years experience because they're not teaching anything. In fact, when I actually see the posts that are made by these people that they call advanced training or master classes, it's not even an intro to an intro to an intro to an intro junior level networking. One of the course providers right now just released their brand new AWS Advanced Networking. And you know how much experience this person has working in networking? Zero. So my courses are done with 25 plus years experience. My courses were done. I've trained the engineers at Cisco Systems. I've trained the engineers at Riverstone Networks. I have engineers and students that work at Google, that work at Cisco, that work at Palo Alto, that work at Oracle, that are working at every major tech company you do. So I know how to be an architect because I am one. I didn't just take a bunch of tests and say, hey, by the way, here's an architecture class. They teach you the class, teaches you the test, and makes you completely incapable of being hired. So I hope I answered your question there.
That's fine. Just to add up on that, Michael, in your course, are there any labs and stuff?
Yes. Well,
there is. Excellent.
There is, but I want to make it clear how our labs and how they're different. Cloud architects do not configure, ever. But you have to know the systems. So these normal labs are set up an S3 bucket. Okay, an 8-year-old can do it. I use it all the time with an 8-year-old. I have you build a cloud. So when everybody else is saying they build an S3 bucket, you're going into a data center view VPN and you're building a cloud. So you get the concept. You're doing the things, you're getting the experience. What do cloud architects do? 90% of what we do is lift and shift migrations, which is taking the systems from the network and the data center to move them to the cloud. The problem is most people don't know the systems in the network and the data center, so we teach that. So these other programs are about the name of the service and how to configure it, and that's why they're about 10 hours for a certified solution architect professional. And that's why our program is between 250 and 500 hours, because we're teaching you how the tech works. We're teaching you how to design the systems. We're teaching you the architecture. We have live training in classroom setting where you ask questions twice per week. We have you do labs. We have you do presentations. We have you do ROI models. We have you do everything that's necessary for the job, as opposed to just taking a test and passing it.
Thank you, Michael.
And we take a lot of the graduates from the other programs. We also remediate a lot of the graduates from the cloud computing programs. When they're done and they graduate, we teach them how to get hired. So we do a lot of those. There's especially one company in the UK. We take care of a lot of their students. I can't mention their name, but it has the word careers in it. But we help a lot of their students.
Okay, that's fine. I'm going to give you a call, I think,
Sure.
when it finishes as well.
Love to speak with you.
Have a chat with yourself.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. Nice. Look forward to speaking with you, mate.
Thank you, Michael.
And looks like Perez has a question. Perez the dev has a question. Is it possible to work remote as a cloud architect? I did for the last 20 years. So the answer is yes. Is it expected that most cloud architects will travel? You will be traveling. There are some things you can do without traveling, Perez the dev, but sometimes you just got to be in front of that customer. Hard to close a $100 million deal if you're not in front of that customer. So there will be traveling. There will be presentations that you need to travel to. You will need to be on site sometimes to lead a team of engineers that are going to be on site that are doing the work. So yes, you will absolutely be traveling. It's not going to be 300,000 miles a year like it used to be, because you can do a lot of these things remote, but you will definitely be traveling. Okay, so any other questions for me? Well, can you get a remote job for people in other countries? Well, the answer is yes. For example, I was recently contacted by a recruiter. They wanted to pay about $180 an hour, and they wanted me to manage a client in Japan. So the first thing I did is I called one of my best friends, Nagaraja, who was living in India, and said, do you want this job? And because I didn't want to work Japanese hours inside the US. And he's like, maybe we share it together. And I was like, we could talk about it. And I was busy running this, so otherwise I would have. But the point is the answer is yes, you can get remote jobs in other countries. People do it all the time. Or you can be people like my student Arun that moved from India to Canada, because Canada is like really seriously looking for people to come in and help do things. So the question is, do we also teach what's behind the services? Yes, that's what we do. Teaching the name of the services and how to configure them is what we consider to be the problem. So we teach all the architecture of all the underlying components. That's part of the reason we have you build clouds. So you know how it all works. You can't design what you don't understand. So that's why it is so critical to us. So yes, we spend tremendous amount of time. That's why we don't have a 10-hour course, Owner of Glory. That's why we have a 250-hour course for that reason. Because we've got to teach you how it all works. You can't design what you don't know. So yes, we work so hard on that. Who else has a question? Any other questions? We're all playing with our new technology. We bought all kinds of new 6K video cameras and specialty 4K streaming encoders and 32-core workstations to try and promote a learning environment that's going to be really great. So hopefully you can hear us clearly, see us clearly, and hopefully it's a good experience for y'all, because we want to make sure that we provide the best training options for you guys in the entire world. So just let us know if we need to do anything to improve the quality. Any other questions for me? Okay, so Chris, I'll list our phone number in case anybody has any questions for our office on both platforms. Chris from my team has posted on at least YouTube. What do you call it? A course, a link to our course and a 20% off coupon. Chris, can you do that in Zoom? I'm not sure where it's at, but I know you know where these things are. And then if anybody has any last minute questions for me, let me know. Otherwise, if anybody wants to call me, I look forward to speaking to you. Anything we can do to help you in your careers. Okay, so any other questions? Okay, for the people that private message me, I will be giving you calls back. For the people that have not private messaged me, feel free to give me a call. Amit, you're welcome. Hope we answered everyone's questions that has them. And we'll speak to you soon. Thank you, everyone. Take care and have a wonderful day.